You know that feeling when you're stuck in endless bureaucracy, when nothing makes sense, and you feel like you're screaming into the void? Well, there's a guy who wrote about exactly that, over 100 years ago. His name was Franz Kafka, and somehow this dead Czech writer has become Gen Z's unofficial spokesperson for modern anxiety. Today we're diving deep into why a man who died in 1924 is more relevant than ever, and why your favorite TikToker probably quotes him without even knowing it. Franz Kafka was born in Prague in 1883, back when it was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. His dad, Hermann, was this intimidating businessman who wanted Franz to follow in his footsteps. But Franz? He was more interested in literature and philosophy. Growing up in Prague meant living in this weird cultural mix, German-speaking Jews in a predominantly Czech city. Kafka always felt like an outsider, never quite fitting in anywhere. His relationship with his father was complicated, to put it mildly. Hermann was domineering and critical, which left Franz feeling inadequate his entire life. The guy studied law because, well, what else do you do when your father expects you to be successful? He got his doctorate and worked at an insurance company investigating workplace accidents. Pretty ironic when you think about it. A man who would later write about the absurdity of modern life was literally documenting how the system failed people every day. Kafka started writing seriously in his 20s, but here's the thing. He published almost nothing during his lifetime. We're talking about maybe a handful of short stories. Most of his famous works, they were sitting in drawers, unfinished. His breakthrough moment came in 1912 when he wrote The Judgment in a single night. He described it as being pulled out of him, this intense, almost supernatural writing experience. Then came The Metamorphosis in 1915, the story about a guy who wakes up transformed into a giant insect. But Kafka wasn't trying to write fantasy or horror. He was capturing something much more real. The feeling of being trapped, of being seen as less than human by the systems around you. His writing style was precise, almost clinical, which made the absurd situations feel even more disturbing. He worked on The Trial in the Castle for years, but never finished either. Both deal with protagonists caught in incomprehensible bureaucratic nightmares. Sound familiar? Kafka's personal life was a mess, and he knew it. The guy was engaged 3 times but never married. He had this pattern of getting close to someone, then sabotaging the relationship because he was convinced he was too broken for love. His relationship with his father haunted him. In 1919 he wrote a 45-page letter to Hermann that he never sent, basically laying out every way his father had psychologically damaged him. The letter is brutal, it's like reading someone's therapy session. Then there was his health. Kafka was always sick, always tired. In 1917 he was diagnosed with tuberculosis, which was basically a death sentence back then. Instead of being devastated, he almost seemed relieved. He wrote about his illness like it was an escape from the pressures of normal life. He was also dealing with what we'd now recognize as severe anxiety and depression. He wrote about feeling like he was disappearing, like he didn't really exist. His diaries are full of self-loathing and existential dread. Okay, so why does a generation raised on social media connect so deeply with a guy who died before television was invented? First, Kafka wrote about alienation in ways that feel incredibly modern. That feeling of being disconnected from everyone around you, of going through the motions of life without really living. That's peak Gen Z experience right there. His characters are constantly dealing with systems that don't make sense. They're trying to navigate bureaucracies that seem designed to crush the human spirit. If you've ever tried to deal with customer service, apply for a job online, or figure out health insurance, you're living in a Kafka story. Social media has amplified that sense of being watched and judged constantly. Kafka wrote about surveillance and control decades before Big Brother, but his insights feel prophetic now. We're all performing our lives for invisible audiences, never sure who's watching or what they're thinking. The mental health aspect is huge too. Kafka was brutally honest about anxiety, depression, and feeling like you're not enough. Gen Z is the first generation to openly discuss mental health, and Kafka's writing gives them a vocabulary for feelings they recognize but couldn't express. Plus, there's something appealing about Kafka's refusal to provide easy answers. He doesn't tell you everything will be okay, or that there's a secret to happiness. He just says, yeah, life is weird and hard and often makes no sense. Sometimes that honesty is more comforting than false optimism. Kafka died in 1924 at age 40, convinced he was a failure. He actually asked his friend Max Brod to burn all his unpublished manuscripts. Thank God Brod ignored him, because those failed works became some of the most influential literature ever written. We literally use the word Kafkaesque to describe situations that are absurd, nightmarish, and bureaucratic. That's not something that happens to many writers. Having your name become an adjective for a whole type of human experience. His influence on literature is massive. Writers from Borges to Murakami to Jennifer Egan have been influenced by his work. But it goes beyond literature. filmmakers, philosophers, and even meme creators reference his ideas. The really wild part? Kafka's world looks more and more like our world every day. Surveillance capitalism, algorithmic decision-making, the gig economy, these are all themes he was exploring a century ago. He didn't predict the future. He understood something fundamental about how modern systems work. His writing has been translated into every major language, and each generation finds new meaning in his work. For Gen Z, he's become almost a patron saint of anxiety and alienation, not because he offers solutions, but because he saw and articulated their struggles before they were even born. So, there you have it. Franz Kafka, the anxious insurance investigator who accidentally became one of the most important writers in history. His legacy isn't just about literature, it's about giving us language for experiences that feel uniquely modern, but are actually fundamental to the human condition. If this resonated with you, definitely subscribe to the channel. We'll be diving into more writers and thinkers who somehow saw the future coming. And hey, maybe go read some Kafka. Start with the Metamorphosis if you're feeling brave. Trust me, it'll make your Monday morning commute feel a little less absurd. Or maybe a lot more absurd, but in a weirdly comforting way. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because navigating the algorithm is basically a Kafka story in itself, and we're all just trying to make it through together.